What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with John Kavanagh talks McGregor versus Mendes comparisons ahead of Irish star's return. With the highly anticipated return of Conor McGregor looming on the horizon later this year, fans and analysts have continued to comb through McGregor's past fight footage in an attempt to analyze how things could play out when he faces Michael Chandler. Ahead of the fight, any comparisons have been drawn between the upcoming fight and McGregor's previous clash with Chad Mendes for the interim UFC featherweight title back in 2015. With Chandler posing a similar threat to Mendes and a similar frame, many have wondered whether things will play out similarly with McGregor and Chandler clash. At the same time, of course, many have predicted that the McGregor we saw compete against Mendes all those years ago is long gone, and the fighter who will compete against Chandler may not have what it takes to keep up. While there's been no word on when the fight could take place, SBG Ireland head coach John Kavanagh spoke about the comparisons, saying,
And actually, I think it could resemble a little bit the Mendes fight. Mendes was that style, blocky guy, big punches, big double legs. So I think that's how it could go. And Conor has a good record against those kind of orthodox, stocky wrestlers with big overhand rights and big double legs. So it's an exciting one to prepare for. Chandler is he's an excellent fighter. He's got a great resume.
With McGregor, the talk in recent years has always been in regards to whether or not he can find the motivation to put in the long, grueling hours at the gym now that he's achieved generational wealth. According to Kavanagh, McGregor is as enthusiastic as ever before. Ahead of his return, the Irish superstar seems to have no shortage of motivation. If the buzz and excitement McGregor currently has is sustained throughout the Ultimate Fighter and his training camp, fans could very well be in for a treat when the former two-division champion returns. Jorge Masvidal's trial for alleged Colby Covington assault pushed back. While Jorge Masvidal gears up for his fight with Gilbert Burns, he'll also be preparing for a pretty big battle in court. After allegedly assaulting Colby Covington outside a restaurant in Florida back in March of 2022, Masvidal was eventually scheduled for a pre-trial date on May 10th. Since then, things have been pushed back, with a new date of May 22nd now penciled in on the calendar. According to reports, if Masvidal is convicted on the aggravated battery charge in Miami, he'd be facing up to 15 years in prison. Despite that, the BMF's lawyer is confident that the case could be settled behind closed doors by the end of March without things ever going to trial. Of course, prior to that, Masvidal will return to the octagon and square off against Gilbert Burns at UFC 287 in Miami on April 8th. The card will be the UFC's first in Miami in quite some time, and with Masvidal fighting in the co-main event, it's sure to bring in plenty of local fans. This will be his first fight since the lopsided loss to Covington back in 2022. Since the fight and alleged assault, Covington has remained sidelined with no return in sight. Islam Makhachev responds to cheating allegations. In the wake of UFC 284, there's been plenty of conspiracy theories flying around in regard to Islam Makhachev allegedly using an IV ahead of his fight with Alexander Volkanovski. Dan the Hangman Hooker was the one to cast the first stone, accusing Makhachev of hiring someone locally to IV him to rehydrate. That led to internet sleuths digging up a fight week photo of Makhachev where he seemed to have a mark from an IV on his arm, which was debunked as being a pre-weigh-in photo, meaning Makhachev wouldn't have been hydrating at that point. Despite that, talk of Makhachev potentially using an IV have continued to surface. The lightweight champion spoke about the situation in an interview with Red Corner MMA, saying,
у нас есть комиссия, я даже комментировать не хочу, потому что у нас есть эксперты, которые работают в UFC, это УСАДА, и меня до боя, после боя 4 раза проверяли, кто-то выставлял там фотографию, что у меня была вена в синяке, но в Австралии у них своя комиссия была, которая брала кровь в неделю боя, это было в среду, и фотографии начали выставлять, брать с четверга, где у нас была фотосессия, так что я не знаю. Ну, это просто кто-то из бойцов раздувал эту тему воздушно, а со стороны UFC или УСАДА никаких вообще ничего не было.
What do you make of the situation? Drop your thoughts down below. Before we continue, make sure you give that like button some love and be sure to subscribe to the MMA Zone for all of the latest news. Bo Nickal reacts to Pereira and Adesanya's grappling. During the first fight between the last stylebender, Israel Adesanya, and former two-division Glory Kickboxing champion turned UFC champion Alex Pereira, the pair engaged in a grappling exchange early on that has drawn plenty of attention from fans. As the two men gear up for their upcoming rematch at UFC 287, middleweight Bo Nickal, who has yet to make his official UFC debut since being signed to the promotion, spoke about the first fight between the two men, saying,
I watched their fight a couple times, and the grappling, the striking exchanges are super impressive. That goes without saying. Is they're absolutely elite strikers, but when they get a hold of each other, it's just almost like funny. Like I'm like laughing at like how they're moving and what they're doing and stuff, because it's maybe they feel that way about me when I'm like hitting pads and hitting the bag and stuff. But I just feel like if I grabbed a hold of either of those guys, it wouldn't go well for them.
Fortunately for Nickal, he'll get the chance to take his first step towards title contention on March 4th at UFC 285 when he takes on Jamie Pickett. How do you think Nickal ends up faring against the middleweight division's top 10? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Beneil Dariush reacts to Volkanovski versus Makhachev. With the Islam Makhachev versus Alexander Volkanovski pay-per-view out of the way, the door could be open for Beneil Dariush to finally get his lightweight title shot. In the midst of an 8-fight win streak that most recently saw him dispatch a former KSW champion, Mateusz Gamrot, at UFC 280, Dariush has been eyeing a title fight for quite some time. During that time, he's seen Islam Makhachev ascend to the top of the division. Although he already felt as though he'd be a good matchup for Makhachev, the UFC 284 main event only further cemented that prediction. He spoke during a recent interview with MMA Junkie, saying,
I thought they were both great. What's the quote I'm thinking about? The analogy, what is it? Unstoppable force meets an immovable object or something. It felt like that. A lot of things with Islam, Volkanovski just confirmed my beliefs, because I didn't really have any tapes on him, but Volkanovski was just able to confirm my beliefs on what I thought his game was lacking and what things I could take advantage of.
The latest rumors have Dariush competing against former lightweight champion Charles Oliveira at UFC 288. However, at this time, nothing has been made official. If the fight does end up happening, how do you see things playing out? Drop your predictions in the comments section below. And now for our breaking news story of the day.
And I love to fight as well, but I know, okay, so I've been in the UFC 5 years, right? If I'm being honest, I'm not gonna be here in 5 years. I have other things to do in life. I've said this on with John Anik when I was talking to him on an interview. I said, you've never seen on my Instagram bio or any of my social media bio, UFC fighter, once I became a UFC fighter. When I became champion, never UFC champion. I never attached myself to this. I love this shit, but I never attached myself to this, and I'm gonna leave on top. That's the best way I feel like you should leave. But again, I've been here 5 years in the UFC. It went like that. We'll see how long I'm here for, but I don't think it's gonna be 5 years, so and it's powerful. So yeah, I'm gonna leave on top, and yeah, just enjoy me while I'm here.
Sean Strickland goes in on Jon Jones on Twitter. UFC middleweight Sean Strickland is never one to hold his tongue or mince his words. Time and time again, the outspoken and oftentimes controversial middleweight has ruffled feathers with outlandish claims and incendiary comments. This week was no different, as Strickland took to Twitter to tear Jon Jones to shreds. As Jones revealed in a series of tweets, when the Southwest got rocked with uncharacteristically cold weather this week, Albuquerque, New Mexico ended up getting a bunch of snow. Apparently, the morning after the snowstorm, Jon Jones' 9-year-old daughter, Olivia, walked into the family's guest house to retrieve a pair of shoes she left there the night before. Not realizing that the door had not closed fully overnight, when she entered, she encountered a bobcat that thankfully ended up deciding to go the opposite direction after giving her one heck of a scare. Jones ended the series of tweets by writing, "I'm so incredibly grateful this morning. That could have turned out so many different ways. Been thanking God all morning." Unsurprisingly, Sean Strickland was quick to fire back, calling into question Jones's religion and referencing several of Jones's past wrongdoings. The tweet didn't go over great with some members of the MMA community, including Chris Curtis, who told the controversial middleweight that tweets like these are exactly why he had been suspended by Twitter in the past. Jones, of course, did not respond to the wildly aggressive comments from Strickland, opting to count his blessings after the chaotic morning rather than engage with Strickland on Twitter. With time winding down before his return to the octagon, it'll be interesting to see whether or not Jones will be asked about Strickland's comments during media obligations for his UFC 285 fight with Cyril Gane next month. Thank you so much for joining us today. What do you make of what's going on in the fight world? Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on all the latest news from the MMA Zone. See you next time.